Welcome, everyone. My name is Berta Hampel, and I'll be leading today's session on the use of tech and data in sports. I work with data on a daily basis, and I love sports, so it's something I'm naturally interested in, but it's also a rapidly growing field, so that makes it a bit more exciting and relevant to talk about. As the first part of the session, we're going to listen to a talk I had with Mateusz Kusznierewicz, who's a world champion and Olympic gold medalist in sailing. Unfortunately, Mateusz cannot be here with us today because he's at regattas, but the talk will act as an introduction to the panel session that I'll later have with Adam, Paweł, and Andreu. So before we go on to watch the interview, Adam, Paweł, Andreu, can you please introduce yourselves? Tell us a bit more about what you do on a daily basis and why it's something you decided to dedicate your careers to. Let's start with Paweł, maybe. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, the most typical start of the conversation of the panel, as you may imagine. Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Paweł Osterreicher. I'm CEO and co-founder of ReSpo.Vision, and I would like to use this time to just tell you a little bit about actually what we do, because it's quite relevant that I'm in this panel, because at ReSpo.Vision we're essentially doing quite interesting things with data in sport. So we are a sport tech. We're essentially trying to make sport more data driven, to give people ability to make better decision, and fans to more immerse into the sport, to give better fan experience. So in practical terms, we have built and we're developing right now the first in the world a optical 3D player tracking system, a fully scalable optical 3D player tracking system. What does it mean actually? Yeah, well, the player tracking system. I mean, essentially we're harvesting, acquiring 3D body point data, like position of the shoulder, position of the forehead, jawbone, stuff like that, over 50 body parts per player, all the time, frame by frame, from a visual input. So this is what optical 3D player tracking means. It's hard, but it's certainly feasible with computer vision that we are employing to achieve that feat. We use the data. Well, what is the data for? Well, for sure to help organizations like clubs, federations, leagues make better decisions about things like tactics, performance assessment, injury prevention, and all in all. We do have customers such as Liverpool Football Club or Paris Saint-Germain. So essentially, we are working with the best clubs. But it's not the whole thing. I mean, we're also doing a visual part of covering visual part of sports. So with the detailed data that we are acquiring, the 3D body parts from the real life game, we're actually able to recreate any real life game, like think football match, into a fully virtual 3D experience. Think video game stuff. So and that allows what's the reason? Like, why would you do that? Well, firstly, you have unlimited camera perspectives, unlimited camera access. You can essentially place the camera and watch the game, the 3D virtual version of a game, a real life game, watch from any angle. So think about being able, that will come soon, but that will be a really interesting thing. Rewatching a replay, like a goal scoring situation in football, from a player's point of view, like through his or her eyes, the player who scored the goal. Well, this is feasible with the technology that we've built, and stay tuned for the first implementations coming soon, as we are now working on commercializing that solution. Thanks for the airtime. I think I spent some time to explain, but I think it's quite important to understand where we come from and what experience we bring to the table. Thanks, everyone.
So, thanks everyone. Hi, Polish Tech Day. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So, my name is Andreu Casadellá from Barcelona. I'm the CEO and founder of improfit.ai. And what we do is, through computer vision, we take some frames of the image, of the video. Let's say that we cut the video in different pictures, and then we use this computer vision to convert the body in some points, in some virtual skeleton. And that information we train an algorithm just for fitness and for rehabilitation. And the goal is to do some exercise with the camera, helping people to count repetitions, to do exactly what they should do, and also to correct in the right position. This is for clubs. We are doing some gaming also to activate some guys, and now we are also putting some food in rehabilitation, just to avoid that people have to travel. It's a B2B platform, so and it's focusing data science, computer vision, and then we also use some full stack engineers.
Thanks, Andrew. And finally, me. So, as the guys have their own products and companies, I'm a bit. I look a bit wider. I work in a company that's doing AI solutions for various customers. So we do things like radars, predictive maintenance, but now probably I'll focus more on this session about the computer vision part, where we use it for health and physical therapy. We did some projects that were using sensors to reconstruct the knee position in 3D spaces. So there are a lot of different things. I also believe that sport is very closely connected to health, and you can use sports for for data analytics and tactics in sports, but you can also use it to predict when the football player will get injured and maybe how to treat him faster. And I'm also doing some research work in Computer Vision Center in Barcelona, which is some extra work. And I'm also having Analityk.edu.pl, which is the website that is helping to teach people that are not IT people to use Python for their daily work. And I'm super enthusiastic about sports, so I'm super happy that I'm here. Thanks, back to you, Berta.
Thank you all. That sounds really exciting, and I can't wait for our panel session later. But first, let's watch the talk I had with Mateusz and listen to what his opinion is on the use of data and tech in sports. Sorry, everyone. It seems we had some technical issues, so we'll come back to the video at the end, and we'll actually start with the panel session first. So you will hear later on that Mateusz mentions the human factor, that technology cannot replace everything, and that we should be using technology wisely. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit more and ask our panelists what you think it means to use technology wisely. For instance, if our intuition goes against what the data is suggesting, what's the right approach? Like, would you always trust the data more? Maybe let's start with Adam.
So this is like super interesting question, and it also comes back to the medical part of sports. And I really like the study that was done where they took I think around 30 very specialized doctors and the AI system trying to detect cancer, and they found out that as the AI detector was able to find most cases and better all the cases that were malicious than actually 30 specialists. What they also noticed is that all the rare cases were only found by the specialists and not by the AI system. So you can say that in some sense, data and systems can be very well in the known cases, maybe even a bit better than the human, but then all the, like you said, intuition cases are only at this point be able to be found by the people. So I think that the best combination is the cooperation of two. And of course, it's hard to have this decision point, like what's more important. But I think we're at this point when, at the end of the day, the human can trust and also believe in the data, but also have this intuition and kind of case by case go one direction or another. But in the end, I think it's a helping mechanism, not the decision point.
Yeah, always it's the eternal discussion about artificial intelligence, data, sports, and life, no? And frankly speaking, for sure, people that thinks that technology, sports, life in general, and AI is for it can be used in a bad way for sure, but it's more positive than negative. And in case of the sports, for the data, for sure it can help to improve, to avoid injuries, to improve also strategies. For example, for Pavel's platform, for sure you can improve the strategy of the team. So data is helpful in our platform. Data can help people to do a better exercise and also to quantify. The important thing is the quantification, because if not, it's feeling. Different quantification from feeling.
Sure. Well, of course, very valid points that Adam and Andreu mentioned. I would like to start by saying that some sort of a let's say self-assessment. I'm a firm believer in a mechanistic approach, a mechanistic view of the world. Of course, it can and should be criticized as sometimes too simplistic, but generally speaking, I do believe that if you dig deep enough, you will find a reason for various things that have been considered hard to grasp, etc., etc. And intuition is actually one of them. I do believe that, well, it generally at the very bottom of it, the reason why we feel certain intuition are quantitative, but we have to dig deep enough in order to uncover them. It seems like a qualitative assessment because we lack tools like self-insight, but also we are limited in the way our subconscious works. We lack tools to realize what have been going on like in our intuition, and that's why we are thinking, oh, well, intuition is opposed to scientific assessment. It is not. I mean, we just don't know it good enough in order to be able to talk about it and and realize what's going on. And I would like to give an example of rapid chess. I mean, it's actually a good example. Like, how come the real grandmasters are making so many fast and correct decisions so quickly? Well, they're not thinking them through, like analyzing, etc. They rely on frameworks. I mean, they understand the setup just by looking at it, and like quasi subconsciously, they remember thousands of previously played games or chessboard setups, and they make a decision like almost subconsciously, almost intuitively, or not. Or fully intuitively. So, I mean, and at the end of the day, they're using data. They're not just, there's not just like magical sparkles in their head. It's just, data-driven decision, but very fast and almost instant. And we call it, chess grandmaster's intuition or whatever. But I do believe that using data is good, and that one should try to decipher why is that intuition tells you something. Try to decipher analytically, and more often than not, we will uncover some hidden deep framework or observation, or that wasn't reflected in the algorithms, in the algorithms, meaning in the data. So we have the opposition of intuition and the data. The correct approach for me is, okay, well, why is that? Why our intuition tells us otherwise? There must be some reasons, some expert knowledge, some underlying frameworks that makes us think the data-driven decision is not a good one. And if we examine it and think about them and assess it, if it's possible, not always it's possible, but if it's possible, then we should, and if it's true, then we should update the algorithm accordingly. So in an example Adam gave with the doctors, I think the correct approach is, okay, well, think, why did the algorithms, doctors outperform algorithms in the edge cases? I think Adam kind of knows the reason. I think I can also try to explain why is that. Because algorithms are trained on a huge data sets of standard problems. Usually the outliers are not included in the data set. Therefore, the algorithm is not trained to be able to solve the 1 in a million case or 1 in a 20,000. I mean, it had 20,000 data set in total that might not have included the 1 in a 20,000 problem. So what's the approach? Larger data sets. What's the approach? More flexible framework, and we should do that. We should do more flexible algorithm. We should do that. We should strive to do that. But at the very essence of it is the realization that intuition is not the opposition of the algorithmic thinking. It's just less understood and more complex algorithms at the end of the day. This is at the essence what I believe the thing boils down to. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think it makes sense that we should not just follow either intuition or data blindly, but there should be some examination behind it before we make the final decision. And just to build on that topic of using data wisely, I also wanted to touch on the health area. So obviously, it's important to improve your sports results, to work to get better, but we should also be keeping our personal abilities, whether physical or mental, in mind. And so I just wanted to ask you how technology can factor in characteristics of an individual in that case.
I think for this point, it's also important when people think that technology will replace trainers, sports trainers, or rehabilitations or doctors. It's not correct, because each person is different, fortunately. And if I want to train, for example, if I am a soccer player or tennis player, and I have a trainer, they can check with computer vision or with some sensors in the body how I'm moving. And afterwards, if this guy is an expert trainer, they can say, hey, Andrew, this movement for hitting the ball, you should change. And then you change some parts in the training of the algorithm in our case. And the data set is impossible to have millions of people. So the important thing is that this human possibility to train and to adapt the technology to each guy and to know which is my goal. Maybe my goal is to run, I don't know, 5 kilometers, and Kipto's goal is to run marathon below 2 hours. So his training is completely different. The important thing is to adapt technology that can be trained individually for each one. And this is done with the data sets and adapting the front part of the trainer to the goals that the athlete wants.
Yeah, building up on what Andreu said. Well, yeah, that's the current state of the technology. I mean, you have to have a human interpreter, human expert, in order to be able to reap the benefits of the technology. I mean, it works that way in sports. It works that way in any major application of data science or computer vision, or for that matter. So I would like to touch upon 2 points. Well, first, why is that? Maybe it will be a little bit insightful for some of the viewers, and then try to tell a little bit about the sport tech with that in mind. So why is that happening? Why what Andreu said is very much true. I mean, well, human minds from the computational perspective are weak compared to the tools that we have right now. I mean, a portable calculator is probably stronger computationally than human brain, but it's not a problem. I mean, the human brain didn't evolve to be a computer or a calculator. Human brain evolved to be as flexible as possible. Well, it's no surprise that the recent advancements, especially in computer vision, but also in NLP, and things like the DALL-E algorithm just recently published, have been made possible because we started to mimic human brain construction, human brain architecture. It's a very similar thing, like we started flying in the air when the planes started mimicking how birds are essentially constructed. Not before, only then. Similarly here, we have a great applications of computer vision started to sprout computer vision and NLP, natural language processing, which is textual analytics, only when we started using deep neural networks, which essentially are trying to mimic the way the brain architecture is built. Why is that? Because it's a very relational, very complex, yet very sophisticated and very sophisticated architecture that helps process the broad variety of data very effectively. And this is why we need a human interpreter, because we are just only beginning to mimic the architecture that for thousands of years have been perfected by evolution in our head, and that will this situation will be maintained for the time being. I cannot guarantee you that in 50 years we won't have any breakthrough, but for the time being, for sure, it has its own limitations. How does it influence the sports? From my perspective, which is a bit different than Andreu's and Adam, which is purely focused on first acquiring the data from the visuals, and then trying to find some insight, like sport related insights or visual fireworks. And so it's very much similar to what Andreu mentioned. I mean, there's only that much that algorithm can do itself. The worst kept secret of data science is that usually 80% of the work is data engineering. So you're not doing actual modeling, you are doing data engineering. You're trying to find the best way to set up the model. And here is no different. I mean, if you want to have an answer for a sport-related problem, like for instance, how did the player perform? Well, the question might sound easy. I mean, well, it should be good, bad, mediocre, whatever, like answer, but the complexity of the question is staggering. I mean, I can tell you right now that no one in the world right now is able to with certain precision to answer such a question. I mean, it's a task that requires defining what constitutes a good performance. How can we make an assessment that can hold on different levels, like different situations, different games, different moments, etc., etc. So the sheer fact of bringing data science to sports at the very first is easy. I mean, well, we start measuring things, we start acquiring the data, like our company, we start acquiring the data that hasn't been acquired so far. But the real challenge becomes when there are simple questions being asked, like, who was better, like this left back or the left winger, who played better in that game? I mean, well, they did different things. The game had different phases. I mean, how to answer that? It's a really challenging thing, and they will have still a huge amount of work to be done. Also, or specifically with the help of experts, and this human-machine interfaces, which are becoming more and more a theme of data science in sport, but also data science, AI everywhere.
So I want to touch a bit on the fact that Paweł mentioned questions that are being asked, and I think if we think about health in sports and health in general, is that with the people we don't often ask a question to a doctor like, why are you giving me this diagnosis? Like, he's explaining some things, but in general we somehow trust that he has the experience, he went through some education process, he has years of doing similar thing. And the problem I think with AI and with technology and with the data is that we always, as a people, we don't fully trust it. I mean, we don't trust people as well, but there is something deeper in the human to human connection, in terms of, if I hear that this is a diagnosis, you somehow trust it. You maybe check it with 2-3 different doctors, but somehow you are able to acquire this data and just acknowledge it. Whether when it comes to technology and whatever we hear from the algorithms, from the data, it's like we always ask, like, but why the system did that? Like, what's the reason? Maybe it's wrong. Maybe where it's coming from. And that's also like the very important part of how we use the AI systems in health, for sports, or for medicine. It doesn't really matter. Is that we have to kind of embrace the idea that we are questioning a lot more those engines. And like Paweł also mentioned about the intuition comes from somewhere. Doctors might have good intuition and bad intuitions, but we question a lot less doctors, just because. But that's important part of the whole discussion about health and sports, to also have this in mind, that maybe this algorithm might have even better understanding or insights than the doctor that we just trust more. And there is some middle point in the sweet spot that we're getting to, where those, I believe still that those two things can be combined, and maybe intuitions of the doctor can be explained by the algorithm, or give extra insight to a doctor to have better intuition with more data as a baseline.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's not an easy question, but I feel like with data, it's usually more complex rather than not. However, I think it's fair to say that technology and data help us understand ourselves better, as we've just talked about. And they even help us understand what our needs or opportunities that we didn't know we had are. So I just wanted to ask if you can share any stories about yourselves or your clients where using data helped them realize that something is possible, or an opportunity that they weren't aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I can start and just and say a few examples. I think the easier examples or like more straightforward will be to the sports environment directly, so to our work that we are doing with clubs and clients, clients federations. So very interesting example of how how opening up, broadening the available data can help in expanding the way people think and people analyze the game. Might be our case with Paris Saint-Germain actually. Well, one of the things that we are bringing to the table, which is absolutely unique and before it wasn't available for analytics, is that, let's say, the 3D perspective, the third dimension, which in 3D is essentially the height. Yeah. So you are not we're talking about the reality understood as a three-dimensional space and not just plane with players dots running around on the plane. So opening up this dimension opens up a very interesting observations that can be made. So for instance, body position. It sounds trivial, but in football, in professional football and professional sports, it isn't. I mean, your body position is quite important. So we started developing a model, a algorithm that tries to assess what direction the player's body is oriented. We can actually do that in on three levels. We can assess where eyes are being, where a player actually looks, gazes in which direction, because we have points on the eyes, line of the shoulders, because we have shoulders, so we essentially take the line of the shoulders, measure it against the sideline, and we have the angle the player looks at any given moment. And similarly, hips. So you have three measurements that can help you assess players' body orientation. And here comes the analytics. I mean, okay, well, so the head coach and the coaching team heard about this possibility, and they said, okay, well, there is this hypothesis. Well, I mean, we believe that's the case. We haven't been able to measure it, but in case of the defensive actions, defensive situations, it's always good if the defender positions his head on the ball, like eyes. So eyes is always following the ball, so that the reaction time can be the quickest, but at the same time, the line of the hips and the line of the shoulders is positioned against the incoming opponent that he or she has to mark. So you're a central defender. I mean, we're Pascal Kimpembe, for instance, from PSG, and there is like this situation going on. Your team is being attacked. You're in the defense. So the ball is with the right winger. So you on the right hand side, on your left side, but right hand side from the winger's perspective, you have to follow the ball with the eyes because you have to make the adjustments and decisions. But if you are a good defender, your shoulders and hips line should be oriented against the incoming attacker. So in that case, center forward, who you are supposed to mark. Why is that? Because at the end of the day, you are going to tackle and fight with central forward. So your body has to be as ready as it can to make a quick decisions, to make quick jump, tackle, or move forward. But your head shouldn't be focused on forward because you wouldn't be knowing what's going on with the ball, and you won't be able to to adjust accordingly. So this is the level of nuance that sometimes it's just overlooked when we are just experiencing the game, looking the game. But this is something that opens up possibilities. And then we started including the data that the PSG guys started including the data that we provided them with to essentially coach the defenders and tell them, okay, Pascal, in that case, your body was positioned against the ball. That's not how it looks like, because the quick pass to the forward, and you have to take a second in order to reposition yourself, and you should be positioned differently. So things like that, quite in depth, but quite interesting use cases that unlocking additional data, additional layer can help with.
So I can maybe just add a few points to that. That's very interesting insight. And also, if we think about the athletes and the Olympics, we see that every Olympics we are breaking the world records in different disciplines, right? And we could assume that the human as a species is evolving and we're becoming faster and faster and faster and so on. But the time of evolvement, it's not that far. Like, we cannot really become faster in such a short period of time. And one of the insight that was given is that actually the people are breaking the records not because they are becoming faster, it's just because they use better data, better fabrics, better technology. It's either data science or even just materials that are faster, that are lighter, that just gives this extra advantage of like 1 second faster, half second faster. And that actually the technology is the important piece that is actually driving the sport and Olympics in terms of becoming better and better and faster. And breaking another coming world records. And I think it's direct relation to what Paweł is saying, that as we have the more insight that is coming from technology, like people can become better in what they do, how they take care of themselves. As Andreu mentioned, we can also use similar technologies to just take care better of our health, physical therapy, rehabilitation. We can even help people that didn't have the access to the physical therapist, to help and be able to put the arm higher so he can help his family, I don't know, in a rural Nepal. I think that's a super important thing.
That's just to add something about the interesting comment of Adam. We talk about, for example, Olympic records that is going down, but I will tell you an example how technology helped to sports, not for professional sports. We organize a Tabata in Mexico, in this case, for thousands of kids, where we train them and we activated them to do exercise. And what happened there? That some guys didn't participate in a running of 10K because they were not used to do sports, and they didn't feel good like being the last ones or competing with 10,000 people. So through technology, they could participate from their house or their schools, and it's more private. But in terms of, for example, we receive many emails or message from families saying, hey, thanks, because our kids are now doing sports, because before they didn't want to participate in a soccer tournament because they didn't play well. And it's also an important point. Our goal is to activate, for sure. It's very important for the elite. Paris Saint-Germain, it's another time of they need other things. But for us, our view is to help people to activate and in terms of sports and activity. And it's much easier with the technology.
Thank you. I think we may not have time to take any questions from the audience, given that we still have the second attempt of the video left. But thank you all so much for sharing your experience in the sports tech and data field. It was really inspiring to listen to. And hopefully the video works this time. So thanks all, and we'll switch over to the video now.
Thank you, Berta.
Welcome everyone. My name is Berta Hampel, and I'll be leading a session today on the use of tech and data in sports. I have Mateusz Kusznierewicz here with us. Mateusz is a sailor, a businessman, a public speaker, and a mentor, as well as the world and Olympic champion and the creator of Sports Champion Academy. I work with data on a daily basis, and something I really enjoy, but probably something I enjoy even more is sailing. So I'm really excited that we're getting to have this conversation here today. Before we start this session, Mateusz, is there anything you would like to add from yourself?
Hi, Berta. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you, and I hope you enjoy today. Yes, I'm an athlete. I'm a sailor, actually. I started sailing long time ago when I was 9 years old, and this is my passion. Actually, I was very privileged also to represent Poland in the Olympic Games. I won the 2 medals, but I also failed. I didn't get the medal on many occasions, and I tell you, to fail, it's also something what I learned to make me stronger, because I always analyze, think why the things didn't happen, and I think this is the great, let's say, adventure in our life, that we can learn not only from the successes but also from the hard moments. Today I'm mostly focused on Akademia Mistrzów Świata. So this is kind of education platform, actually not kind of, but this is the modern internet platform, which is for the people who are the athletes, but also coaches or the parents of the young athletes. And we are making a lot of valuable materials, video, but also text, the podcasts, which many people, doesn't matter if they are doing athletics or lifting the weights or running or biking or triathloning or playing volleyball or football, they can learn in our academy. So I'm very happy that I'm doing something which is close to sport, but also this is a business project. And this is what I'm doing for a living.
Thank you. That sounds like a great initiative. So thank you for sharing that with us. Obviously, you have a lot of experience as a sailor, but also as a coach and someone actually developing tech and data solutions. So it'll be really interesting to hear a bit more about your perspective on this topic today. Let's start with a simple but interesting question. So how can athletes and sports teams benefit from the use of data and tech in sports? And also, would you say that such solutions don't go against the fair play rules?
Well, this is an interesting question. So first of all, what I can tell you, what I'm using and what is important for me. The technology in my life and my sport is something which I'm using every day. And not only when I'm training or competing, but also in between, because I want to learn what my body, what my mind is ready for. And this is why I'm using the device, which I have on me every day. Actually, this is not the band. I use the Oura ring. This is kind of ring. This is my marriage ring, but this is the technology ring with a lot of sensors, battery inside. And it's connecting, and it's always analyzing about my body, my heart rate, my body temperature, my stress, and many other data. It's connected to my smartphone, and I open the Oura application, and here you can see my readiness today. It's 85. My night, my sleep, it's 90. Oops, like this. Says that my sleep efficiency this night was 92%. My total sleep was, I wish it would be a little bit longer. It was 7 hours and 18 minutes. Actually, I was in bed 7 hours, 59 minutes, where you can see, but it's my sleep was a little bit shorter. And I can see also what was my lowest heart rate. Why I'm using it? Because I want to know and control everything what influence my energy, my focus, and my stress, which I want to have under control. So there is many things what it's important. Also my activity, about my heart rate, how many calories I burn. So it's also important how much I eat, because the fuel for us, for our brain, but also for our other muscles, is not only food, but also how we recover. And good for everyone is that good news for everyone is that this is available for everyone. You can order it. You can have different bands which measure also your the same, monitor your life. And this is something what I think is fair. The other story is that there is a technology which is not available for everyone. And this is sometimes very advanced technology. And in this case, this is the big question mark. Is it fair or not fair? I know that in the professional sports like NBA, basketball, football in top clubs, Formula One, and many other sports, some technology is customized and made only for this, and this costs a lot. But I think today that in the normal sport, Olympic sport, most of the technology is available for everyone, and I think it's good. So you can have a technology on you. You can have it on your bike. You can have it on my sail, which I'm using, and I want to learn what is its shape and aerodynamic flow, how it goes in the different wind conditions. So I think this is something what makes me better athlete, better sailor actually. And I think everyone in every sport can find the way to advance, to get better, thanks to technology.
Thank you. I think that certainly makes sense, that the technology helps us understand ourselves better, but also the equipment that we use. However, there are some limitations in terms of availability to everyone, and that's when it may become a bit of a problem in terms of fairness. So we've talked about what technology can do. Are there any things it cannot do? Do you think there are any areas of sports that cannot be replaced by data and tech solutions?
Yes, I think there is some limitations for the technology. I can see that technology, even it's really, really well advanced, the computers are very strong and the sensors are better and better, and the software is growing unbelievably fast. But still, we as humans have got our emotions, which are not easy to control and analyze. There is so much, not only data, but also chemistry in our brain. And I think to control the emotions, which are so important, they are actually influencing the results, the performance. It's something what the technology still cannot do as good as the athlete himself or herself, or the coach, or the whole support team. Also, what I can see, that actual view, so what we see during the action, during the on the field, in the car when we are racing, on the bike, also when we are facing, fighting with the competition. This is, I cannot imagine that the computer itself, the technology, could see everything and analyze in a real time as good as our brain. Thanks also to the trainings and many hours, weeks, months, and years of experience, of getting this experience during the trainings and competition. I have a good example for you. Just recently, there was a Formula One race in Monaco. I'm a big fan of the Formula One, not only because Robert Kubica was there, but I learned about Formula One when Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost were competing against each other. But now it's super cool, and there is so much technology in this sport. So I'm following and learning what I can bring from Formula One to my sport. Anyway, this race was tricky because it started in the rain, big rain, cloud rain. So there was a lot of changes and strategy, and the wheels, wet wheels for the wet asphalt. And then in which moment they have to change for intermediates and slicks. And it's all about the positioning. So for sure, what we can learn that the Red Bull and Ferrari, they were fighting against each other, but there was the strategy which makes the human with the support of the technology, because I'm sure that the people who were making the decision, calling the final, making the final call, when to come to the pit stop and change the wheels and so on, they had a lot of data on the screens, and there were some simulations. I know it because I learned it. But on the end, computer itself could not make the final decision, the right decision. There was also the input from the driver, from the different sources. So there are some limitations which today the computer still cannot do. And I think there will be areas of our life where technology cannot replace the human. And I think it's a good news.
Definitely. I guess at the end of the day, it's people who are in the core of sports, and it's not just technology itself. So as mentioned, technology can support us, but it's still people who play the most important role. So you've mentioned that technology solutions have rapidly developed over the past few years. Can you tell us a bit more about how technology and data solutions have changed over time since you started being an active athlete?
Right. So it's a big difference. It's a huge difference. Actually, what we can see is that, I remember what was like this 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. But the biggest, let's say, acceleration of the hardware and software was during last 5, maybe 3 years. And I also see that today we have a 2022, June, and I can imagine, and I also follow the, kind of looking in the future, that between 2025 and 2030, it's going to be huge different for all of us. What I can see that hardware and software, this is something which every day, is getting better, faster, smaller, and more available for everyone. But what I can see is the biggest improvement is in the data analysis. So all of the sensors, or all of the cameras, and all of the applications, software, how it's all connected, it's there. But to analyze the data, it was always the challenge. Also for me, I have so much data to available for myself, but to bring it together, to learn from it, and to get the results, what is better, what is worst, this was the challenge. And now computers, software, and this data analysis are improving hugely. And it's in business and also in sport. And I think this is something what we can benefit from today, data analysis.
That's great to hear also, because it's my field, so really exciting. And is there anything that data or technology helped you realize? Is there any stories that you can share with us?
Oh yeah, for sure. Of course, my sport is very technically advanced. My boat, the shape of it, the materials it's built, how stiff, strong it is. My mast, which bends, which has to be dynamic. My sails, the cloth it is, but especially the shape of it for the light winds, how the shape should be changing for the stronger winds, so I can sail fast and high. This is important. All the ropes, they've got a lot of tension on it, and I have to not only understand how it all looks and what is the shapes and what is the tension, but I want to know what is the optimum performance, what is the optimum shapes and the tensions, so I can repeat it for the next competition. If I know today that within this competition, in this sailing conditions, on these waves, on this temperature of the air, in this strength of the wind, these settings of my boats are the best, I need to know what are the settings. If it's is it 85, is it 91, is it 96? Don't care about the numbers. I'm just giving you the repetition. And if I know that this is 91, I want to know how to repeat it, how to set it again the same way within 2 months when I will be sailing next during the World Championships. And this is the key to the success, the repetition, to understand where we are, what is good, what is wrong, and how can we, if it's wrong, how can we improve, and how can we repeat. So, it's not going to be only once when we are winning. And I think this is something what is really important. I give you another example, the weather forecast, which is so important for us. When we are racing, we need to know how the wind is going to increase or decrease, how it's going to shift from left to right, for example, at what time, how many degrees, so I can, on my logbook, on my strategy, I can say which way to go on the beginning, so I can benefit from the change which weather forecast says. And this is computers, a lot of data, statistics being analyzed by the person who is our weatherman. and he has a huge, very strong computers to give us the final forecast. But also what he used is the real-time data. So, for example, on our venue, when we are sailing, there are buoys floating in the water with the sensors, and these sensors are connected to the network. So they are sending the real-time data. So the forecast, the statistics, but also real-time. And all of this would be impossible by one man to see the numbers and learn from it. So there is a software made especially for this. So it gives him the indications, and in a percentage, okay, 85% that this scenario will happen. And we are receiving actually very squeezed, very selected information, which I can understand and use during the racing. So from the big data, which is analyzed, it's squeezed and given to me. And this is big help, actually. Every top team during the Olympic Games, during the America's Cup, wherever they race, they learn from it. And they pay for this kind of service. And I think this is also something what is normal today, which was not normal many years ago.
Definitely. So it certainly sounds that data and tech solutions not only help us understand our own performance, but also conditions that we can't control, like the weather that you've mentioned, and therefore combining the two gives us a much better understanding of how we should proceed the next time we're participating in the sports competition, or if we just want to improve our own results.
This is nicely said, Berta. I think you mentioned something which is important in our life. Some things we can control and some things we cannot control, but we can predict. We can give some, way to give a chance that this is going to be quite, a big chance that this will happen. And I think prediction, this kind of scenario and giving the percentage of the chance that this will happen is something what also today technology can help us with.
Absolutely. And I think that leads us quite nicely into my final question. So I wanted to ask about Target 10, because you've actually launched a tech and data solution yourself. So I just wanted to understand a bit more about why you decided to invest your time in a solution like this, and what kind of opportunities you think it unlocks for athletes and coaches.
Yes, Target 10 is the software we are working for more than 2 years now. This is the software which is also targeted to the athletes, so they can improve their performance and the results. And as you said, Target 10, actually the name of the Target 10 is to target. So I have a target and I want to, like in shooting in how we say, with the arrows. Archery. Archery. Into the 10. So this is the very interesting software in a SaaS technology availability business model, where athletes from all around the world, they can connect and also have available for statistics for the wind and the weather venue. They can cooperate with their coach to analyze their performance. They can, it's also education platform where they can have online meetings with the coaches and the specialists, for example, from the weather, from the technology, from the boat building, but also from the sport sponsoring and marketing and communication in sport. So this is one place where the athlete can find everything what he needs. And actually, we made it because we need it. So we found out that I have around me many notes and so on. I also have a lot of stuff on my smartphone, but I don't have one place where I could keep it. And now, thanks to Target 10, we have one place which just solve all of my needs and problems and challenges. So this is pretty cool. And I'm proud that I bring this to the market. which is the technology, which I'm a big fan, as you can see.
Definitely, yeah, it's definitely something to be proud of. It sounds like it quite nicely brings together the data aspect, but also the human aspect, the human knowledge, as you've mentioned. Right, well, that was my final question. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and experiences with us. It was really interesting and inspiring. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close the session to everyone watching us today?
No, I think we touch many things. I think what I can tell you is that I learned the technology in sport the hard way. I fight a lot with devices, with the hardware, software, but what I found out on the end is the way we are using it. We have to be smart. We have to use technology that way that it will help us not only burn our time, use our time, and we will be there, but it will not bring anything. If we have a challenge, if we want to solve the problem, if we want to improve with something, we should use this technology the way it will help us, not only use our time. And I think today we can recognize, as I said before, 3 areas of technology. The one is the hardware, the second is the software, but the third, which is just great today, is the way it is analyzed. The data is analyzed, and this analysis can bring us the very important and valuable information, the input, which we can use. And I think this is the key. The way we are receiving the information, the most important and valuable informations, which we can use and get better for the future. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. And it was a pleasure to have you join us, Mateusz. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. All the best.